we read one of the many times in Tanakh, and especially in the Torah, that we have this idea of Ve'ahavtem et hager, and you must love the stranger. But this time, the Rashi's commentary on this passage is a little bit different. In Rashi's commentary on Dvarim, chapter 10, verse 19, he says that what this means, he looks to Bava Metzia in the Talmud, and there Rabbi Natan takes this verse and says, what does this mean? It says, Mum shebecha al tomar lechaverecha. Do not reproach someone else for a fault which is also your own. In other words, we have the kind of very ancient tradition that's been said by many people in many different ways. If you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. And I think that combining this idea with the idea of how we interact with strangers, how we interact with the other, is really important and very salient for the work that we've been talking about and for the discussions that Robin DiAngelo brings up in her book, White Fragility. We often have a desire to project racism onto other people. We are not the racists. They are over there in the pictures in our history textbooks, waving Confederate flags. They are the racists. I was in a class at JTS and a rabbi from New Jersey came to speak to us. And he proudly talked about how he had been born and raised in the blue liberal bubble of New Jersey. And it wasn't until he went down south to work as a rabbi for the first time that he really saw what racism was. And then he proceeded to talk to us about one of his personal heroes who was a rabbi of a synagogue that had been down in urban Newark until it moved out to the suburbs because Newark just wasn't the place to be anymore. And I think that we have a desire to not recognize that there certainly is racism over there. There certainly is racism, whether it's in the South or at the Ku Klux Klan rallies, but there are also racist undertones to things that we sometimes think of fondly. And I think one of the things that Robin DiAngelo does very well is she forces us to peel back some of that, and for all of us to recognize what our own place in a system that can be really difficult. Another book that I read recently, Dear Church by Lenny Duncan. He's a Black pastor in the ELCA, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, which is, according to him, the whitest church in America. They're 97% white by membership, and he is a Black pastor. And he pointed out that we often want to see ourselves as the protagonists of any story. That in the New Testament parable of the Good Samaritan, where there's an injured person by the side of the road and that person is passed by an Israelite and a priest and a Levite, and then the Good Samaritan stops to help them, that we want to see ourselves as the Good Samaritan. That's the role that we see for ourselves in life, generally. And he pushes us to acknowledge that perhaps sometimes we are the person who walks by. We are the person who doesn't stop to help. That we are the person who doesn't do all that they could do to make life better for everyone else around us. No one from this synagogue marched in torchlight parades in Charlottesville. But there are ways that we have benefited from a system that we've been learning about over the past few weeks that privileges us in matters of housing, of generational wealth, of access to healthcare, and all sorts of other ways that, I should say, those of us in the community who are white or white passing carry those benefits. In our commentary from Rashi on this week's Parsha, we're reminded that to do this work that we're doing right now, we have to be able to start by looking in the mirror and identifying ourselves. What are the ways in which we need to act differently? We need to perhaps change. We need to grow in order to make our world a better place. We cannot point fingers before we do the hard work of understanding how racism works in our own lives. I think that reading this book, White Fragility, is a step in that direction. Not that White Fragility is gospel or that everything that Robin DiAngelo wrote has to be the way that you see the world. But I think that her thesis that we have to be able to look at ourselves and not simply stop the conversation every time race comes up is critically important and is pointed to in this commentary of Rashi's. So we're gonna move forward tonight. We're gonna watch a short clip of the author speaking about this book in order to refresh our memories of maybe some of us. I know some of us probably just finished the book, but some of us probably finished a few days or weeks ago, and so it's good to get a little refresher on what's in the book. And then we're gonna split out into breakout rooms, and we are gonna try to ask ourselves some of these questions. What in the book resonated? What in the book challenged us? And Rabbi Greenberg will explain a little bit more after the video what that's gonna look like. So I'm gonna share my screen.
All right, everybody. So hopefully that gave you a little refresher of the book and a little reminder of what we all read. And I just want to give a little bit of framing and explaining before we break out into small rooms, into breakout rooms. So just as a reminder, this is something that the whole Riverdale community is doing, which is a pretty amazing thing. After George Floyd was murdered, we decided really as a whole community that we wanted to take this topic on and to really be thoughtful about it and to do something. So there are groups all over across Riverdale who read this book and are having similar get-togethers like we are tonight, and that's pretty amazing. So we really see this book as a mechanism for reflection and growth, to get a deeper understanding of racism and its effect on our lives and our systems and what we can hopefully do about it. And certainly, Robin DiAngelo has one view of things. I've heard critiques from her already from people. Please bring your critiques and your disagreements to your breakout rooms. That's great. And there's a lot to learn. So bring all the things that challenged you and that you learned from and all of that when you go into your breakout rooms. So I just wanted to set some operating assumptions and some communication guidelines, since these can be tough conversations. So we want to do them in the best way we can. So just to say, we're all learning and growing. This is a process for all of us, and it's great, and we're glad you're here no matter what step on the process you're on. We're all at different places in that process regarding race and racism, and we've all been raised in this society which racism exists, and we've been socialized in it, and none of us chose to be, but we all have been. And I want to name especially that for Jews, this is particularly complicated because we hold two things in our hands. One is that we are a minority and we have faced oppression, and two is that for those of us who are white, we have immense privileges in our society, and it can be difficult and complicated, but it's important to hold both the fact that we have been privileged and that we have been oppressed at the same time. And some communication guidelines. So these are all pretty basic, hopefully you know, but just a reminder to everyone, please try to make I statements. Don't make broad generalizations about people. Try to express your viewpoint in a thoughtful and respectful way. To ask questions with other people with curiosity. To be respectful of people's experiences that are different than yours. That it's okay to make mistakes, that we're all figuring this out together. And finally, just be aware of where you are in the group. We have facilitators, but if you're talking a lot, maybe take a step back. And if you haven't spoken much, please step up. We'd love to hear your voice. So with that, we're gonna split you up into small groups. And it always, there's kind of like the fine magic of doing this on Zoom. So it may take a few minutes to get them the way that we're supposed to be, but we'll send you out into small groups and your facilitators have the specific questions to ask you.
Excuse me, when do we come back together?
We're gonna come back, let's say we'll come back at 9. We'll do like 5 minutes of closing, so we'll be done by 9:05.
Thanks.
No problem. All right, Noa Pitkowsky, our amazing Zoom guru, is gonna set us off. See you on the other side.
There should be something on your screen that may have said, would you like to join breakout room X? Okay, great. So I'm not sure who this is. I actually can't see your name or see you. So if you need any help getting to your breakout room, if you could either send something in the chat or unmute yourself so I can help you get to your room. And if you are the audio for someone else, I can also bring you to the same breakout room. So just let me know how I can help you. If you need to unmute yourself, in an iPhone, in one of the corners, I believe it's the bottom left corner, there should be a microphone. And if you click on it, that will help you unmute yourself, or there'll be a video camera. And if you click on the camera, I can then see you and help you get to your video. Or you can press leave or end meeting, leave meeting. It's a red button if you would like to leave a session. Hi, welcome. So we just went into breakout rooms to discuss the book. You will be with Susan Schwartz, who will be facilitating your breakout room.
Thanks.
If your breakout rooms are anything like mine, I hope they were full of really rich and interesting conversations, that this was a taste of wanting so much more. I feel like there's a lot of good conversations and not enough time to have all of them. So thank you all for coming and for your openness and your willing to share and to just engage in this work with us. So to wrap it up for tonight, we just figured we'd open it up to the groups. If you want to share one thing that someone in your group said that you thought was a good next step forward, because, you know, we wanted to have this 5-part series, and again, hopefully the 5th part we're rescheduling. We'll let you know as soon as we have it. Is to really like to learn and to think and to grow together and to figure out what our next steps are going to be, both personally as a community. So we really want there to be action that comes out of this, and we'd love to hear from some of you. If you want to raise your hand or just flail around, we'll go back to gallery view so we can see you. But people want to share one step that they took away, either that they said or someone in their group said with their group, please let us know.
I see Susan raising her hand. Go ahead, Susan.
One of the members of our group was talking about being in conversational situations that can feel difficult, and perhaps doing some role playing to learn how to use our voices, to stand up, to be an ally, to not necessarily call out, but to call forth a different voice than the one we might ordinarily call up.
Yeah, Elisa, go ahead.
So one member of our group suggested that if you have friends of color, coworkers of color, that you initiate a conversation with them to say, listen, if I ever say anything that's kind of off, can you call me on it? Can you bring it to my attention?
And we talked a little bit about a couple of things related. One is to be forward about bringing up things that you perceive, statements that you might perceive as racist. And the other is sharing stories with each other and perhaps with the people from Preston Avenue Church.
Yeah, I'll say in our group also, we talked about deepening relationships, both on a personal and on a communal level. That, you know, reaching out and being in touch with people in our lives who are, who may feel under attack right now, and letting them know that we're there for them. And then also as a community, continuing to further our relationship with New Life and with Creston, and especially having opportunities for the community members to get together and to build relationships and to get to know each other more deeply and hear about each other's experiences.
Yeah, in our group, you know, similar to sort of doing joint activities, was also doing other joint activities that don't just involve us sort of helping somebody, but do something together that is, you know, like a common project that we're kind of coming in as partners with somebody. And I would say just continuing to have these discussions, these further, because there's a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, thank you. We're gonna go, Matt had something to say, and then Amy will go to you.
So we also were talking about different ways to interact, whether it's meet somebody in your building who you've never met before and get to know them, or have bigger dialogues. We were also talking about some social action and what does it mean to actually do active things to counter racism, or when you look at candidates, maybe their approach on certain issues you raise it to a higher priority than we might have in terms of how they think about countering racism and equity and things like that.
Thank you. Amy?
So when I was reading this book, it reminded me of a book I read many years ago when I was in graduate school. So this doesn't have to do with your question. And it had to do with large group transformations. And it's called Sitting in the Fire. And what the premise that I got from that is when you're in any kind of group or any kind of situation, what voice is not being heard? Who is not there? And always having that in mind and recognizing the discomfort in yourself and being able to sit in the fire, be able to sit with that discomfort and then be able to talk about it.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, so I'll just share a little bit from my group. Thought it was very interesting. Someone was talking about how do I bring this into my work? How am I thoughtful about this in terms of what I teach or how I'm interacting with people at work? But how do I bring this, I guess, into the virtual office since not so many people are in their actual offices yet? So yeah, just want to thank all of you again for your openness. You're willing to come and discuss and learn and read and be in this with us. Just want to do like a few quick thank yous. Want to thank all our facilitators for tonight and who have been with us actually throughout this whole series. So thank you very much to Neil and Susan and Elisa and Matt for jumping on this time. And thank you to my cohorts in crime who organized all of this, to Ben Freed and to Meryl Nadell and to Miriam Westheimer for really putting this whole thing together. And to just say, if you want action steps to happen with the shul, please be in touch with me or Ben or Meryl or Miriam. We really saw this series, and again, hopefully part 5 is coming, but we really saw this series as a way to start the learning, but this is not at all we want to be doing with this. We really want to take next action steps forwards. And if you're excited or curious about what that could be, please be in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks for being on this journey, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Alrighty. And of course, Noah, thank you to you. Oh my God, I will
Oh,
thank
yeah,
you next
Noah.
time. I'm so sorry. You've been amazing. When part 5 happens, I promise you will get a shout out.
It's my pleasure.
Are you still at camp?
So I came back on Wednesday, the day after the storm.
Okay.
I'm back in Riverdale.
Did camp end early because of the storm, or was it did it so happen?
No, so camp actually is like happening still. I think people are leaving this week, the latest. But I had to get back, and my ride wanted me to drive with her. So
Nice. When do you head out to Bing?
2 weeks. So been here only about 5 days, and I've already gone camping to escape. So we'll see how the next 2 weeks go.
Where'd you go camping?
My friends and I just went up. It's called North South Lake Campground. It's about 2 hours from here. It's near Woodstock.
Cool.
Yeah, it was like really nice.
I asked David if I could go hang out at TY for a week, and he said no. Something about occupancy permits and,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all that legalese stuff, yeah.
And I was like, oh, come on.
Yes. Yeah, Kira was actually like, whatever, they've been up there. And then she was like, yeah, like you guys should come. And it was the whole thing. Yeah, it was these permits. That was.
Yeah. Did you watch have you watched the documentary Crip Camp?
No, but I
Not yet.
have, you told me about Kid Nation.
Oh, yeah. Did you watch any of that?
No, but I watched the trailer and it's been open on my computer, ready for me to watch it. But I've been too scared.
So Crip Camp is about a camp for people with disabilities that was open in it started in like the 50s, but this is more like during the like late 60s, 70s period.
Mhm.
And so 2 things about it. One is it's basic, like a lot of the campers are Jewish because it's a camp in New York. And the vibes that you get, because they have a lot of archival footage of this camp, and the vibes you get are like, this must be like something like what TY was like back then. Like it's like all these people like with no shirts and long hair playing guitar. There's a whole little subplot where like at one point they had an outbreak of crabs and they had to like quarantine the boys from the girls and like put all of their like stuff out in the fields to like fumigate it all. It was hilarious, but it was also like, so a lot of the documentary is about how a lot of the early disability rights activist leadership came out of this camp, and about like how they used the tools that they gained as camp counselors to then like lead justice work. Like there's literally, so one of the women, like you see her first as like a counselor, like trying to get people like, okay, so the kitchen staff is gone and we're gonna have lasagna this week. Does everyone, or do people vote for something else? And I want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and like all this stuff. And then she's like leading sit-ins where they're also trying to figure out like, how are we gonna eat and what are we gonna do? And like, how are we gonna make sure everyone's voices are heard? And it's awesome. Really, really good.
It's called Crip Camp.
Crip Camp, yeah, like short for cripple.
If you ever want to know what TY was back in the 60s and 70s, my mom was there, and my parents actually got married there.
Right, my parents were also there. So, or I guess my parents were there in late 70s, early 80s, but still the good old days.
Yeah, my parents apparently were one of 2 couples to get married at TY. They're the only ones that are still married. So I guess they have that title.
Wow.
Did David Cross divorce his wife? There was a recent wedding.
Oh, maybe there's a more recent one. There were only 2 that I know of when there was a reunion of 10 years ago. So maybe there's a new one.
No, there was a celebrity who got married there 7 or 8 years ago, David Cross. So Amy Poehler was going down the zip line at TY and
Seriously? Wow, I did not know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Good times. I wasn't there, but I heard great things.
Amazing.
But yeah, so highly recommend both. And also I just learned a ton about the history of the disability rights movement in America that I did not know at all. So it's also great if you're interested in another justice cause that at least for me was not it was on my radar, but the history of it was just not something I was super aware of. So.
Interesting. I'll have to look it up.
Alrighty. Great.
All right.
Have a good night.
Thank you both.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.